Scarcely noticed amid the chaos of World War I, there stood on a back street of industrial Milan in 1917 the headquarters of a socialist newspaper known as Avanti, Forward. And from these insignificant rooms, when on the field of Caporetto the Italian forces were in full retreat, a new voice was raised in the panic of the time. Down with the state, it cried. Italy needs food, but her leaders have given her only a useless army. So spoke an unknown left-wing journalist. Benito Amilcare Andrea Mussolini. But when the war was over, a disillusioned Italy turned to a new party. A party, its opponents said, composed of impetuous boys. And when in the swelling fascist ranks appeared the former socialist from Milan, many believed amid the confusion that the black shirt he now wore was the new fighting symbol of the people. For did he not promise at the very start, we shall act not against the working class, but for it. And before a parliament whose tears of the moment were soon to end in permanent dissolution, the new prime minister proclaimed, within a decade, we shall change the physical and spiritual face of our beloved Italy. The first year of the fascist era has begun. And so, across the land of Italy, there burst such a fury of reform that no city and no citizen was left in peace unchanged. I am at once an aristocrat and a democrat, a reactionary and a revolutionary, a legitimist and an illegitimist, declared the busy architect of Italy's new destiny. I am building a full-blown corporate state. Already, I control the forces of politics and those of economics. Soon I shall even control the great forces acting in nature. And this new and youthful Italy, born to fascist order or rejuvenated on the fields of fascist sport, sang to the glory of its Duce, youth, youth, springtime of loveliness, in fascism is our salvation and our new-found liberty. History and through the Alps, as the Italian saying goes, the hated Germans will return again. And to their brothers in fascism, they returned again to form a friendship in conspiracy. But even while Goebbels sailed the lagoons of Venice and spoke of common cultural ties, Mussolini turned aside and said, Pagliaccio, the man's a clown. And when von Ribbentrop visited Rome, he whispered of the Duce's son-in-law, Count Ciano, flatter the playboy's vanity, and all will then go well. And while the father of fascism himself waited at the Brenner Pass to keep the first of many trysts with the man who was at once his pupil and his master, perhaps he remembered that only a few months before, one of his papers had written of the Nazi chiefs, they are murderers and pederasts and nothing more. And no sooner had the dictators exchanged their careful greetings than Italian troops occupied the passes of the Alps just to make sure. For at this very time, while a fitful peace still lingered over Europe's frontiers, Italy's leaders had other plans, were sifting the very sands of her shores in a steady drive to scrape together the resources needed to seize a place in the sun elsewhere. He who can make steel will soon have bread, they said. And Marshal Badoglio, whose men were later to use mustard gas in Abyssinia, smiled his approval and passed on. And with possible sanctions in his mind, the Duce personally assured himself that the good wine of Italy was making good synthetic fuel. It is proletarian Italy against the world, they cried. And bombing defenseless Abyssinians, the Duce's son remarked, "This is the most complete of sports." And while the black shirts fought on foreign fields, Italy's peevish little king, groomed to wear the imperial crown, gazed on the golden dream of an empire soon to be. But when the conquering was done, the reality was different. For to gain the unwilling service of a few bewildered Africans working on unproductive land, the bill was $1,000 million. No wonder that the streets of ancient Rome should see the greatest triumph since the days of Nero. For if the new empire could yield no bread, it was all the more essential to cover up the loss with circuses. And as the people watched this grandiose procession, perhaps a few remembered that nearly 20 years before, a certain journalist in Milan had said, "Down with the state. Italy needs food, but her leaders have given her only a useless army." Thus was fulfilled the poignant prophecy of Italy's great liberal patriot, Giuseppe Mazzini. Italy will yield the reins to the first man claiming authority to hold them. And this she will do because of her utter inexperience of the nature of great revolutions.
La forza!
We do not care if we are hated, he shouted on that day of hollow triumph. We do not care, because we have nothing but contempt for those who hate us. Today, the voice of fascism speaks differently. The Italian Empire is not dead, it says, but it is interrupted, and many of our countrymen are suffering from an indefinable sickness that one calls the African disease. But back in Italy, it is no African disease that has made 40 million people sick of war. For 3 years, they have lived on rations shorter than those of most of conquered Europe. For 3 years, they have seen the hated Germans returning yet again. And helpless in the hands of one invader, they have been watching, waiting for the coming of another. And with the Allied convoys heading for the gates of Italy, Italians everywhere are remembering the words spoken 4 centuries ago. Italy shall find her liberator, and it is our common hope that the true banner of this people may once more be raised among the nations of the world.